my husband, for the sake of the woman and illegitimate child outside, fabricated the company's bankruptcy and presented a divorce agreement saying, "I don't want to burden you and our daughter." With tears in my eyes, I signed the agreement and took over the mess of a company and property he threw at me. Then, I used the fake debt he confirmed to set a real trap of $1 billion for him. When the bank came knocking, his mistress's dream shattered. He tried to gain sympathy and slander me online, but he didn't know that I had already laid a trap, waiting for him to be ruined. Finally, I used a paternity test to send him straight to hell. My finger slid across the words Phoenix Legacy Inc., bankruptcy filing, and the icy touch almost froze my blood. The office was eerily quiet, with only the low hum of the air conditioning system, as if playing a dirge for the dying company. This document was like a death certificate, announcing the end of my years of hard work. This company was the only legacy Chris's parents left him, a pair of diligent and kind old people. They probably never imagined that the fruits of their lifelong labor would perish in their son's hands. Chris, my husband, a man with no talent in business and only empty ideals. When his parents passed away, the company was already on the verge of collapse. It was I, Ava, who took out all the dowry my parents gave me and invested it in this bottomless pit, working day and night to barely pull it back from the brink of death and maintain its decency for so many years. Over the years, Chris was nominally the president, but in reality, I handled everything from strategic decisions to daily operations. He was happy to be idle, only appearing when money was needed or when he needed to show off his president status. But now, it's still bankrupt. My heart felt like it was being clenched tightly by an invisible hand, hurting so much that I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just because of the money and energy I invested, but also because it once held all my expectations for this family and for Chris. How should I tell Chris? This news will be a bolt from the blue for him. He's been living in a self-woven dream of being a successful entrepreneur, never truly facing the harsh realities. Will he break down? Will he put all the blame on me? Or will he do something even more unpredictable? I know his fragile and face-saving self-esteem. This is a complete shattering of his dignity for him. I even started imagining his desperate eyes, imagining his possible intense reactions. For a moment, I was even a little scared, not afraid of his accusations, but afraid of his fragility that might not be able to withstand the blow. Just as I was in turmoil, repeatedly considering how to speak, the phone screen lit up. It was Chris. His profile picture is still the one we took in Hawaii a few years ago, with a bright smile. "Ava, are you done with work? Come home early. I have something to tell you." His tone sounded unusually calm, even with a subtle lightness. My heart sank suddenly. This abnormal calmness made me more uneasy than any hysterical reaction. Does he know? Did the bank notify him? Or did he hear rumors through other channels? My fingers trembled slightly, and I replied with an okay. On the way home, the evening rush hour traffic was bumper to bumper, and every honk felt like it was hitting my taut nerves. I kept guessing at Chris's possible reaction, and what he wanted to say to me by calling me back. Pushing open the door, the living room lights were a bit blinding. Chris was sitting on the sofa, not watching financial news as usual, but holding his phone. The screen lit up. Seeing me come in, he looked up, his face bearing a look I had never seen before, a mixture of gravity and determination. "Ava, you're back." He didn't get up, just patted the seat next to him, signaling me to sit down. I walked over, my heart pounding like a drum. He handed me the phone. On the screen was a report, Phoenix Legacy Inc., facing bankruptcy liquidation. President Chris may face huge debts. The layout was crude, the wording exaggerated. It was obviously a fabricated fake news story, with even a slight spelling error in the company name. But I didn't call him out on it. I just looked at him, waiting for what he would say next. "You see," he took back the phone, his voice low, "the company is finished. It's my fault. Poor management. I've ruined what my parents left behind." He lowered his head, his shoulders slumped slightly, looking deeply stricken and guilty. Then, he took a document from under the coffee table and pushed it in front of me. "This is a divorce agreement." My pupils constricted suddenly, and I looked at him in disbelief. "Ava, I can't be a burden to you and Lily." He raised his head, his eyes full of pain and struggle. "The company is gone, and I am burdened with debt. Following me, you will only suffer. Let /s get divorced. I/ll leave the house to you and Lily, and I/ll leave with nothing. That way, at least you can still have a stable life." He spoke with sincerity, like a great man willing to sacrifice everything for his wife and daughter. At that moment, I was actually moved by his affection and responsibility. All doubts and anxieties were washed away by a sudden surge of emotion. Yes, the company went bankrupt, and he must be very sad and remorseful. He proposed divorce to protect us mother and daughter, not wanting us to suffer with him. This fool, how could he think that way? My eyes grew hot, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I picked up the divorce agreement, didn't look at the specific terms, and with all my strength, tore it to shreds. The paper scraps fell like snowflakes. Chris, what nonsense are you talking about? My voice was tearful. If the company is gone, we can earn it back. If the money is gone, we can make more. We are husband and wife, and husband and wife should share joys and sorrows. No matter what happens, I will not leave you. We will face it together. I held his hand, feeling the coldness of his fingers. I thought it was despair and helplessness, so I held it even tighter. However, Chris's reaction was beyond my expectation. He was not moved by my affectionate words, but suddenly withdrew his hand. A trace of obvious impatience flashed across his face. Although he tried his best to hide it, I still caught it. Ava, don't be like this. His tone became heavier. You simply don't understand how serious this situation is. This isn't a matter of tens or hundreds of thousands. It could be debts of hundreds of millions. I don't want you and Lily to get involved. I'm doing this for your own good. He stood up and paced around the living room with irritation, deliberately avoiding my gaze. I've already decided. Divorce is the best choice for all of us. There's no need for you to try to persuade me, he said decisively, with no room for negotiation in his tone. His insistence and uncharacteristic indifference, like a bucket of cold water, extinguished the flame of emotion that had just ignited in my heart. A trace of doubt, like a tiny vine, began to quietly spread in my heart. If he really is doing this for my own good, why is he so eager to push me away? Why does my support and determination only make him more impatient? In the following days, Chris seemed like a different person. He stopped coming home for dinner, and his responses to my messages became perfunctory. Every time I tried to talk about the company or future problems, he would interrupt me with "I've made up my mind. Don't say anything more." The more he acted like this, the bigger the doubts in my mind became. I really had no choice, and thought of Chris's best friend, Leo. Leo and Chris grew up together and their relationship was as solid as brothers. Maybe Leo can persuade him. I met Leo at a cafe and told him about Chris proposing a divorce and the possible bankruptcy of the company, hoping he could help persuade Chris to change his mind. After listening to my account, Leo seemed even more agitated than I was. He slammed the table and scolded Chris for being muddle-headed. This Chris, is his brain waterlogged? Ava, doesn't he know how good you are to him and how much you've contributed to the company? So what if it goes bankrupt? The couple can get through it together. Why get divorced? I'll go find him. I have to scold him awake. Leo was indignant, and his words were full of support for me and dissatisfaction with Chris. Seeing Leo's attitude, I felt a slight relief, thinking that things might still have a chance to turn around. I asked him to persuade Chris properly. However, a few days later, when I contacted Leo again to inquire about the progress, his attitude had completely changed. On the other end of the phone, he hesitated and his tone was uncertain. Ava, well, I think what Chris said might also be a little reasonable. What? I couldn't believe my ears. Think about it. He's carrying so much debt right now. He must be under a lot of pressure. Maybe a divorce would be a better choice for you and Lily. Better a short pain than a long one, don't you think? Leo's voice was getting lower and lower, as if trying to convince himself. This sudden change completely stunned me. Leo, who had vowed to scold Chris awake a few days ago, how could he suddenly stand on Chris's side and start persuading me to get a divorce? This is too unreasonable. Unless there's something I don't know about behind this. Huge doubts and anxieties overwhelmed me like a tide. Leo's abnormality made me even more convinced that Chris's bankruptcy and divorce were definitely not as simple as they seemed on the surface. The truth always comes unexpectedly, in the cruelest way. That night, I was so preoccupied that I couldn't sleep. In a daze, I heard suppressed voices coming from the study. It was Chris. He was back, and he was on the phone. Curiosity drove me to quietly walk to the study door. The door was ajar, and the voices inside came out clearly. Baby, don't rush. It's almost there. It was Chris's voice, with a tenderness and flattery I had never heard before. Her? Heh. That woman is rigid and boring. Being with her is simply torture. If it weren't for the company. But it's okay now. I'll be rid of her soon enough. My heart sank into an ice cellar in an instant. Who is he talking about? Is he talking about me? Don't worry. I've already told her that the company is bankrupt and owes huge debts. She's terrified and will probably agree to a divorce soon. Then, I can be with you and our son openly. Son? Which son? We only have one daughter. Lily. Yes, I know. I'm so sorry for you. And our CJ. Don't worry. As soon as the divorce is finalized, we ll get married immediately. I ll buy you a big house then, buy you a diamond ring, and marry you in style. Take this 50,000 yuan to spend first. Tell me if you need more. My brain went blank, as if struck by lightning. The bankruptcy was a lie. The real reason for the divorce is another woman. He's not only cheating, but he also has an illegitimate child named CJ. All those responsibilities he told me about, all that for my own good, were all carefully woven lies. He's full of disgust for me, but he spends lavishly on that woman named Sarah and their illegitimate child, tossing around $50,000 US like it's nothing. I covered my mouth, forcing myself not to make a sound. Tears streamed down silently, carrying a bone-chilling coldness. All these years, everything I've given to the company and this family is worthless in his eyes, even becoming a burden he wants to get rid of. And that woman named Sarah, and their son CJ. A nausea and anger beyond words surged into my heart. I leaned against the cold wall, my body trembling slightly with extreme anger and heartbreak. Tears flowed for a long time, until my eyes were dry and aching. But gradually, sadness and heartbreak were replaced by a stronger emotion, a cold anger and determination. He thinks he can easily get rid of me by fabricating a bankruptcy lie? Does he think I'll be a fool, leaving with my daughter with nothing, to fulfill him and his new family? Does he think I will silently endure all this, allowing him and that woman to step on my pain and live a happy life? No, absolutely not. Since he started this game with lies, then I will use his lies against him to gain the greatest benefit for myself and my daughter, and make him pay the most painful price for his betrayal. Calm down, Ava, you must calm down. I wiped away my tears, took a deep breath, and tried to calm my churning emotions. A plan quickly took shape in my mind. Isn't he saying that the company is bankrupt and burdened with debt? Fine, then I will let him bear all of this legitimately. Isn't he eager to get a divorce? Fine, then I will cooperate with him to achieve his goal as soon as possible, but on the condition that he must pay the price. The next day, I took the initiative to find Chris. I put on light makeup to cover up the traces of crying, and tried my best to squeeze a tired but understanding smile on my face. Chris, I thought about it all night, and you are right. I looked at him, my tone carrying just the right amount of sadness and helplessness. Maybe a divorce is better for both of us. I don't want to be a burden to you, and I don't want Lily to live a life of wandering with us. Chris obviously didn't expect me to figure it out so quickly. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, but more of it was undisguised joy and relief. Ava, it's so good that you can understand me. He came over and wanted to hug me, but I avoided him without leaving a trace. But I changed the subject. We are husband and wife after all. And there's Lily. Even if we have to separate, let's do it amicably. I cooperated with his script, expressing my reluctance and worries about the future, while subtly guiding the topic to pave the way for the upcoming negotiations. Watching his relieved, even eager, appearance, I sneered inwardly. Acting? Who can't do it? The subsequent negotiations went exceptionally smoothly. One could even say Chris actively cooperated to get rid of me, this trouble, as soon as possible and live happily ever after with his Sarah. He accepted almost all of my requests. The debts are definitely mine. He thumped his chest, taking on everything. It's my responsibility that the company is poorly managed. It has nothing to do with you and Lily. I'll take care of it. He probably thought this was just part of his lie, an empty promise. The company is just an empty shell, and it owes a lot of money to suppliers. He pretended to be heartbroken. If you don't mind, I'll transfer it to you. Maybe you can find a way to revitalize some assets? Consider it a little compensation from me to you. He was eager to get rid of this mess to me so that he could get away cleanly. The house must be left to you and your daughter. He acted benevolent and righteous. This is the only thing I can do for you. I hesitated again and again, and finally reluctantly agreed to his proposal. We quickly found a lawyer and signed an agreement in black and white. Chris voluntarily assumed all the debts of Phoenix Legacy Inc. The specific amount was not clearly stated, but it was implied that it was a huge amount, and transferred the ownership of the company to me. The property purchased after marriage, valuable and under my name, but it is common property during the marriage, is wholly owned by me. Watching Chris's impatient expression as he signed the agreement, as if he had gotten rid of a huge burden, I lowered my head, hiding the sarcasm and coldness in my eyes. He thought he had taken advantage of everything, but little did he know that he had personally signed a death warrant to hell for himself. After the agreement was signed, the divorce procedures were put on the agenda, but before going through the formalities, I made a request. Chris, before we officially separate, could you take Lily out one more time? Just the three of us, like before. I looked at him, my tone pleading. Lily is still young, and I don't want her to think that her parents separated because of arguing. I want to leave her with slightly better memories. I brought up our daughter, Lily. I knew that even though Chris was becoming increasingly indifferent to the family, he still wanted to maintain the image of a good father in front of others, especially during this sensitive period of impending divorce. As expected, Chris hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. Okay, where do you want to go? Let's go to that newly opened Fantasy World theme park in the suburbs. Lily has always wanted to go. It was a sunny weekend, and the theme park was bustling with noise and laughter, but between Chris, Lily, and me, there was an awkward and distant atmosphere. Lily was very excited at first, holding Chris's hand and wanting to go on the carousel, but Chris was clearly absent-minded, perfunctorily responding to his daughter while frequently looking down at his phone, typing quickly with his fingers, and occasionally revealing a sweet smile at the corner of his mouth. I knew he must be in contact with Sarah. After accompanying Lily on 2 rides, he became extremely impatient, constantly checking his watch, making excuses to sit on benches and rest, and continuing to giggle at his phone. Lily gradually sensed her father's perfunctory attitude and coldness. The smile on her face disappeared, and she silently walked to my side and took my hand. Seeing the disappointed look on my daughter's face, my heart ached as if pricked by needles. I squatted down and hugged her. Baby, what's wrong? Don't you like it here? Lily shook her head and whispered, Daddy doesn't seem to like playing with me. At that moment, I recalled a picture I had seen while sorting through my daughter's artwork not long ago. The picture depicted a family of 3, but the father's image was blurry, with his back to the mother and child, walking into the distance. Next to it, in crooked handwriting, it said, When will Daddy play with me? Intense guilt and deeper hatred for Chris surged into my heart. For the sake of his so-called true love and illegitimate son, he could be so cruelly hurtful to his own daughter. When I got home that night and was Lily, is a verb, meaning coax, to sleep, she suddenly put her arms around my neck and whispered, Mommy, does Daddy not like me anymore? My heart tightened, and I asked softly, Why do you say that, sweetie? Last time, the school organized a parent-child activity to the zoo. Dad said he was busy and told me to ask Uncle Leo to go with me. Lily's voice was muffled, but I saw Dad at the zoo. You saw Dad? I was a little surprised. Yes, Lily nodded, her eyes a little red. Dad, he was with another auntie and a little boy. He was so nice to the little boy, kept holding him, buying him ice cream, and taking pictures of him. But when he saw me, he pretended not to see me and quickly took them away. My heart sank completely. So, his so-called no time was spent accompanying his illegitimate child. His indifference towards Lily was not a spur-of-the-moment thing, but a long-planned scheme. He not only deceived me but also directly and cruelly hurt our young daughter. This man has no humanity left. The day after we went to the theme park, a crucial phone call came for Chris. I had calculated the time perfectly and, using Chris's identity information and the name of Phoenix Legacy Inc., applied for a huge line of credit from a major investment bank. I also mortgaged the property that would soon be in my name for the maximum amount. I set the loan amount at an extremely exaggerated figure, $10 billion. Of course, given the actual situation of Phoenix Legacy Inc. At the time, this loan was simply impossible to approve, or rather, even if it was approved, it would be a huge, unpayable trap. I was betting on the bank's review process and Chris's arrogance. I happened to be by his side when the phone was connected, and inadvertently overheard the conversation. Mr. Thompson, Chris's last name? The serious voice of the bank's credit department manager came from the other end of the phone. Regarding your company Phoenix Legacy Inc.'s application for a $10 billion loan, we need to finally confirm whether you confirm that you and your company will bear all debts and repayment responsibilities arising from this. Chris was obviously stunned for a moment, probably wondering which part of the play this was, but he was eager to get divorced and was convinced that the company was a mess to be dumped, and the so-called debt was just a prop to scare me. He just wanted to end it all quickly. Yes, I confirm, he said impatiently into the phone. I am responsible for all affairs and debts of Phoenix Legacy Inc. Handle it as soon as possible. He thought he was just cooperating with his own lies, but little did he know that he had personally confirmed to the bank the huge debt that actually existed and was enough to crush him completely, and had tightly bound himself and that already empty shell of a company, which might even have been emptied of all its liquid assets by me in advance. He hung up the phone and breathed a sigh of relief, a smile of success on his face. Seeing his stupid look, I lowered my head, hiding the cold curve at the corner of my mouth. Chris, the game has begun. Boom. The moment Chris received the divorce certificate and all the signed company and property documents, he felt a sense of relief, with unconcealed ease and liberation on his face. He didn't even say a proper goodbye to me, just hurriedly checked the documents, and after confirming they were correct, he turned and left without looking back, his step so light as if he were rushing to a grand banquet. Watching his back disappear at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I stood there, not moving for a long time. Tears finally couldn't be held back and quietly streamed down my face. These were not tears of sadness, but of relief, of farewell, of mourning for my youth and love that had been completely betrayed. From today onwards, Ava is dead, and everything in the past will be buried. As expected, Chris rushed to his happiness without stopping. In less than a month, I saw photos of him and Sarah holding a grand wedding from the social media updates of mutual friends. In the photos, Sarah was wearing an expensive wedding dress and a pigeon egg-sized diamond ring, smiling brightly, while Chris stood beside her, beaming, as if he were a winner in life. However, this happiness didn't last long. Soon, I heard some rumors. Sarah was no pushover. Immediately after the marriage, she demanded that Chris fulfill his promise to buy a new luxury apartment in the downtown upscale neighborhood, and the luxury car had to be the latest model. At first, Chris was still immersed in the joy of being newly married and getting rid of me, and he tried to satisfy Sarah's requests, but gradually, he began to feel annoyed, especially when he tried to use the funds in the company account. He found it empty, with not even enough money to pay for some basic operating expenses. He became paranoid, probably thinking that I had taken all the company's money before the divorce. As for me, the day after I got the divorce certificate, I acted as quickly as possible. I contacted a real estate agent and quickly sold the house Chris gifted me at a price lower than the market price. The moment I got the money, I finally recovered part of the dowry money I had invested in the company back then, which was a small comfort. Then, I immediately went to cancel the original mobile phone number and changed to a brand new number. I applied to the court to change my name, gave up Chris's last name, and went back to my own maiden name, even changing my first name Ava to Olivia. Finally, I took Lily and all our luggage and moved away from this city to a place where no one knew us, completely disappearing from the sight of all acquaintances. I cleared all traces of myself on social media, as if I had evaporated from the world. The real storm only descended on Chris after I disappeared. The bank's debt collection team arrived at his door with formal legal documents. It wasn't about some fabricated bankruptcy debt, but about the real $1 billion loan he had personally confirmed. The debt collectors presented his autograph, perhaps forged to be extremely realistic, or signed by him in other documents, and phone recordings, that crucial phone call, as evidence, clearly informing him that Phoenix Legacy Inc. was already insolvent, and as the company's legal representative and debt guarantor, he would have to personally bear this astronomical debt. Even more devastating for him was the bank's notification that the property he had gifted to me, because I hadn't obtained full ownership yet, had been used by me, in his name or the company's name, as collateral for this huge loan, or the bank had already had a prior mortgage right, and now the bank was going to legally recover and auction it. Chris was dumbfounded on the spot. He realized that he had been completely outsmarted by me from beginning to end. The so-called bankruptcy was real, but not the way he had fabricated it. The company was truly worthless and burdened with real debts that were enough to crush him. He thought he was getting rid of a burden, but he actually took over a ticking time bomb. When Sarah learned that the house was going to be taken away and that Chris had not only failed to provide her with a wealthy life but had also incurred a $1 billion debt, she completely broke down. She screamed, cursed, and accused Chris of being a liar who had ruined her life. The former true love instantly became abhorrent in the face of harsh reality. With nowhere to turn, Chris made the choice I expected, playing the victim. He contacted a local TV station that liked to sensationalize things and started live streaming on social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter, tearfully accusing me. He twisted the truth, portraying himself as a victim schemed against by his malicious ex-wife. He claimed I knew the company was failing long ago but deliberately concealed it, forcing him to divorce when he was in dire straits, and then took away all the company's money and real estate, leaving him alone to face trumped-up huge debts. He depicted me as a gold-digging, fickle, and abandoning woman, even implying that I had cheated on him long ago and the divorce was premeditated. He tearfully recounted how he deeply loved the family and how he was betrayed and drained by me, seeking public sympathy. For a time, public opinion was in an uproar. Under Chris's carefully orchestrated barrage of lies, the public, unaware of the truth, was incited and accused me of being greedy, ruthless, and materialistic. My personal information, including old photos, work experience, and even Lily's school information, was doxed and published online. All kinds of vicious insults, curses, and threats flooded towards me like a tide. Even more terrifying, Lily was also bullied at school. Classmates laughed at her as the daughter of a gold digger, and some children even threw stones at her, telling her to get out of school. Chris's pitiful performance did deceive many people in the initial stages, but unfortunately, he chose the wrong opponent. Olivia is not a lamb to be slaughtered, nor is she a weakling who will silently endure grievances. My counterattack started with a photo. I registered a new Twitter account and anonymously posted a photo. The photo was taken in an upscale restaurant, showing Chris with his arm around Sarah, smiling happily at the camera. Sarah was holding a 2- or 3-year-old boy, and the family of 3 looked harmonious and sweet. The photo was captioned with only one sentence: 1 month before the divorce, my good husband and his true love family. This photo, like a bomb, instantly detonated the public opinion field. Netizens who had previously sympathized with Chris began to question his claims. The family of 3 in the photo stung the public's eyes and made people suspect how much truth there was in Chris's claims of being abandoned and squeezed dry. He was with his new love and their child a month before the divorce, and the child is already so big? The timeline doesn't add up, does it? He played the victim card, saying his ex-wife was a gold digger, but it turns out he cheated during the marriage and has an illegitimate child who's already several years old. Scumbag. The man in the photo is smiling so happily. How does he look like he owes a ton of money? Public opinion began to soften, and some people began to question Chris's victim persona, pressing the advantage. I released the second wave of evidence videos. I edited several key video clips, including Chris forcing the divorce, me begging him not to divorce, Leo persuading me to divorce, of course, only excerpts of his changed attitude, and Chris and Sarah going to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get their marriage certificate. The most important thing was that I released the scanned copies of the divorce agreement, the company transfer agreement, and the real estate gift contract. These videos and documents clearly show the truth. It was Chris who insisted on the divorce, even resorting to fabricating lies. It was I who pleaded to save the marriage. It was he and Leo who jointly persuaded me to divorce. After the divorce, he quickly obtained a marriage certificate with his new love. The company and property were all voluntarily transferred and given to me by him, and there was no such thing as me taking away the property. The most crucial step was Leo's defection. Perhaps it was a pang of conscience, perhaps it was due to pressure from public opinion, or perhaps something went wrong on Chris's side. Leo, who had firmly stood on Chris's side, suddenly spoke out publicly on social media, accusing Chris of lying and revealing the truth about his divorce scheme. Leo admitted that he and Chris conspired to falsely persuade Olivia to divorce, with the aim of making Olivia believe that the divorce was for her own good, thereby reducing her vigilance and facilitating a smooth divorce. He also provided a timeline of Chris and Sarah being together, as well as details of how Chris planned the bankruptcy lie and how he transferred company assets. Leo's testimony was undoubtedly the last straw that broke Chris's lies. the truth came out, and public opinion completely reversed. Netizens who had previously sympathized with Chris were instantly enraged, and their anger all turned towards Chris. Scumbag, cheating during marriage, abandoning his wife and daughter, and selling misery to slander his ex-wife. He is simply the ultimate scum. I feel sorry for Olivia. Marrying this kind of man is really the worst luck. Leo is a true friend, able to stand up and tell the truth at a critical moment. Resist scumbags. This kind of person should be banned from the entire internet. Online, there was an overwhelming flood of abuse and condemnation directed at Chris. As for me, I instantly transformed from a gold digger into a pitiful victim deceived by a scumbag, winning countless sympathy and support. Chris's attempt to gain sympathy completely failed. Not only did he not succeed, but he also shot himself in the foot, pushing himself into an abyss from which he could never recover. He became the scumbag of the century, despised by the entire internet. Endorsements were withdrawn, all work invitations were cancelled, and his social media accounts were reported and banned. Everywhere he went, people pointed and criticized him. Even more terrifying, debt collection letters from the bank arrived like snowflakes. Debt collection calls from suppliers came day and night. Former friends avoided him like the plague. Sarah also completely broke up with him, took away his few remaining cash, and disappeared with CJ. Chris was completely trapped in a dead end, abandoned by everyone, and his reputation was ruined. Chris, with no way out, thought of the last straw: remarriage. He found me at the bottom of my newly rented apartment building, begging for my forgiveness like a lost dog, asking me to give him another chance. Olivia, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. I shouldn't have been blinded by greed, shouldn't have hurt you and Lily for that woman. Please, for Lily's sake, give me another chance. I promise, I will treat you well in the future. I will turn over a new leaf. He knelt on the ground, tears streaming down his face, begging hoarsely, with hardly a trace of his former elite CEO demeanor. I stood upstairs, looking coldly at his performance downstairs through the window. There wasn't a ripple in my heart, only endless disgust and contempt. Lily came to my side, pulled my hand, and whispered, "Mom, who is that uncle downstairs? What is he doing?" I pointed to the embarrassed figure downstairs and said calmly to Lily, "Lily, look carefully. This person is the father who once hurt us and abandoned us. But, from today onwards, he has nothing to do with us." Lily nodded as if she understood, and said firmly, "Mom, I don't want him either. I only have Mom." Hearing my daughter's words, the last bit of hesitation in my heart disappeared completely. I turned around, drew the curtains, and completely isolated that poor wretch from my world. I know that mere disgrace and debt are not enough to thoroughly punish Chris. I want to give him a more fatal blow, so that he will never be able to stand up again, and let him experience despair that is more painful than death. I anonymously commissioned an authoritative DNA testing agency to conduct a paternity test on CJ's DNA sample and the DNA sample from Chris's used toothbrush that I secretly collected. The result, as expected, was that there was no biological father-son relationship between CJ and Chris. I anonymously sent this appraisal report to Chris. The day Chris received the appraisal report was the day he was formally sued by the bank. All his assets were frozen, and he was completely in a desperate situation. This sudden surprise completely shattered his last line of psychological defense. He couldn't accept that he had abandoned his wife and daughter for a woman and a son, only to discover that he had been cuckolded and that the son wasn't his at all. All his efforts, all his sacrifices, all his calculations, had turned out to be a complete joke. Despair, anger, shame, all kinds of negative emotions erupted like a volcano, completely consuming his reason. He frantically found Sarah, questioned her, insulted her, beat her, and finally, in extreme madness and despair, he lost control and personally killed Sarah and CJ. Chris was arrested, and what awaits him is the severe punishment of the law, most likely the death penalty. The prison contacted me and asked if I was willing to visit Chris. I refused without hesitation. I have nothing more to say to this man, and I have no feelings for him. To me, he is just a complete stranger. A symbol that once brought me endless pain and hurt. Dust has settled, and everything is over. I took Lily and left this troubled place, went to a new city, and started a brand new life. The sun is still shining, and life goes on. I know that the shadows of the past will not easily dissipate, but I believe that Lily and I will eventually emerge from the darkness and embrace a bright future that belongs to us. The new life belonging to Olivia and Lily has only just begun.